Welcome back, my friends. Thanks for joining me. Welcome to all of my new subscribers. So if you're new here, I'm Anna B. I like to dive within the records of each state's Department of Corrections, taking a look at women who find themselves doing life behind them walls. So we back behind the walls for Women Serving Life in Oklahoma, Part 3. It was in 2020, Jeanette reported the 6-day abuse and torture of her 3-year-old daughter. It was by the hands of her boyfriend, Gus Pennington. Gus used a belt, a board, and a shock collar. There was also video showing that the girl was being forced to hold a sign that says, "I'm a liar." This video camera was in the little girl's bedroom. When authorities found the girl, she was emotionless and covered in bruises from head to toe. Jeanette reported the abuse out in Collinsville, Oklahoma, saying she and her daughter had escaped their abuser. But authorities quickly began to consider Jeanette as a suspect as well. They learned that she too had participated in the abuse. Did she forget about the video camera that was in her daughter's room capturing the abuse that this baby endured? Gus Andrew Glenn Pennington was given 6 life sentences. He was convicted of kidnapping, domestic assault, and battery with a deadly weapon, child abuse, and other drug-related charges. Jeanette was given a life sentence for her convictions, which include 5 counts of child abuse and 1 count of child neglect. She too is at the Mable Bassett Correctional Center for Women in McLeod. Sometime after 2 p.m. Sunday, August the 11th, Brittany was driving a car at about 80 miles per hour when she slammed into a minivan that then flipped and collided with an SUV at Northeast 23 and Kelly Avenue. Phyllis Murray, 71 years old, was in the minivan and died at the scene. 4 others, including children, were injured. Before that accident, Brittany had left the scene of another accident on Northeast 30 and Kelly Avenue. Brittany was high on drugs. She pleaded guilty to 2nd-degree murder and was sentenced to life. Christina Matthews is spending the rest of her life behind them walls for allowing this monster to abuse her children. She also participated in the abuse. Initially entering a not guilty plea, she changed her mind after a jury was sworn in. She pled no contest to 2 charges of child sexual abuse. She did plead guilty to 1 count of permitting child sexual abuse and 1 count of child neglect. She was sentenced to 4 concurrent life terms. Brian Campbell was convicted in 2017 of child sexual abuse and 1 count of child neglect. He abused the children, all under the age of 10 years old, over the course of several years. Investigators said Brian targeted women with children and provided for them financially. This investigation ensued after Christina's children were removed from her home because of drugs and neglect. The children disclosed of this abuse while they were in foster care. And sadly, this case doesn't just involve Christina and her children. Investigators said Campbell has juvenile children who may also be victims. The investigation resulted in 3 more women being charged. They said some of these women participated and others knew about the abuse but did nothing to stop it. Beverly Vaughn was arrested and charged with permitting child abuse and child neglect. Don Cox was charged with permitting child abuse. Crystal Toney was charged with child neglect and permitting child abuse. Neither of these 3 women are still in the Tulsa County Jail or in the Department of Corrections per online records. I'll keep you posted if I find anything else about any additional charges towards Brian Campbell or the 3 additional women. Tiana Morris told Oklahoma State Bureau investigators that she was kidnapped by Caleb Morris from her place in Tulsa and threatened to kill her if she didn't direct him to the residence of Dion Steen. This is where her mother also lived. Caleb was Tiana's former boyfriend, who she also had a child with. When Caleb, Emmanuel, Corey, and Adam got there, Cassandra was home, but Dion was not. They ransacked the home, stole money and other items. Corey reportedly told investigators he was in the trailer when Adam shot Cassandra and poured a flammable liquid inside the trailer. They left in a pickup truck, and then as they were leaving, they saw the neighbor looking, Mr. Kenneth Taylor. So they drove up in his driveway asking for water for the fire. When Kenneth turned around, he was shot multiple times with his wife watching by. The medical examiner revealed Cassandra was shot once in the head and once in the neck. It was months after the murders and robbery that Tiana was named as a suspect. Warrants were issued and she turned herself into authorities. She's accused of being an accomplice in the killing of her own mother, which led to the death of Mr. Kenneth. All suspects eventually pled guilty, except Adam Clayton Roberts. He was on the run for 3 years before being captured by the U.S. Marshals in Nashville, Tennessee. Emmanuel Taylor entered prison in 2008, serving a life without parole sentence plus 10 years. Caleb Morris entered prison in 2007, and he's actually been paroled as of 2017. Corey Ware is currently incarcerated. He was sentenced to 30 years for accessory to felony murder, 20 years for robbery first degree, and additional years on probation after he finishes up his time incarcerated. Interesting, it shows online that he was convicted of rape in the first degree March 26, 2019. I'm not showing he was ever out. So how did he get a rape charge? I'm going to dig a little bit deeper in that, but that's quite interesting. So that charge, he was convicted on rape in 2019 and received an additional 10 years. Tiana is serving her life plus 45-year sentence at the Mable Bassett Correctional Center with the other women featured in this video. It's the state of Christina's, because Christina Nelson Coddington also finds herself at the Mable Bassett Correctional Center for Women after being found guilty on 29 counts relating to child abuse, including first-degree rape, incest, manufacturing child pornography, and lewd acts with a minor. There were over 6,000 pages of communications between Christina and her husband, and thousands of photos and videos viewed by investigators during their investigation into the Coddington couple. Evidence also showed the children were beaten, handcuffed, and raped. Disgusting. They both conspired to commit incest with their unborn child. How? Why? Unbelievable. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children received a tip that Christina and her husband, Gerard, had shared an inappropriate image of a child online. They contacted the Attorney General's office and provided that tip, which launched the investigation into this very despicable couple. They were arrested within 3 days. Gerard was 25 and Christina was 30 when they were found guilty on all 29 counts in 2019. They engaged in horrifying acts of abuse and violence with innocent children. They were very evil people who presented a danger to society. And thank God none of these children lost their life, as we all know that all children don't make it out of those situations alive. Christina was arrested as she dropped her children off to their grandparents, her former in-laws. She and Dustin Martin had material warrants issued. Dustin was able to run away, and after an all-night manhunt, he was captured and arrested. They were wanted for questioning in the death of Christina's stepfather, Timothy Parenti. His body was discovered by his wife, Linda, on Monday, October 31st, 2011. Timothy left he and Linda's Tulsa home on Friday, October 28th. He was going to spend a few days up at their other residence. Linda says when she got there, the home had fire and smoke damage. She found Timothy partially burned and dead. Linda had called investigators and told them her daughter called her on October 29th saying she and her boyfriend were looking for Timothy. Linda said Christina had called her back a few hours later and said, "We did it. We killed him." Christina said they didn't mean to kill Mr. Timothy. Dustin accidentally shot him with the gun, saying that the gun had a hair's trigger. Christina told her mom Dustin then poured gas on Mr. Timothy. Linda ended up being arrested after Christina and Dustin as an accessory after the fact. She does not appear to be in the DOC, and no sources has proven she's been found guilty of the charge. Christina was convicted on April 3rd, 2013. She received a life without parole on the murder charge and 25 years for second-degree arson. Dustin Martin was convicted in 2012, and he received a life sentence. Does anyone from the Seminole area remember these faces? Rebecca and Rex Clark, the couple, the aunt and uncle, who almost got away with the murder of their 9-year-old nephew. I just don't understand why people choose to take children in when they don't even have to, just to abuse them and take their life. The only thing I can think of is evil. Rebecca and Rex reported Colton Clark missing on April 20th, 2006. Colton and his older brother were placed with their aunt and uncle due to their parents' drug and alcohol issues. Rex and Rebecca adopted them in November of 2004. Colton's older brother said he was brainwashed into lying, saying Colton ran away because he was upset about an appointment with a psychiatrist and either ran away or was picked up by his father. The last time he remembered seeing Colton, he was lying motionless and beaten on a couch after being accused of stealing a ring. Here's a news clipping from KOCO News 5, back when the story was being covered and Rebecca and Rex were in and out of courtrooms. Rex shows his evil side, his evilness. And in my opinion, Rebecca looks like a scared lost little puppy behind her owner.
This is the last time you saw convicted child murderers Rex and Rebecca Clark.
Everybody back up, please.
Back up, everybody. Back up, please.
The two had just been sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. And this is what the two look like now, 5 years later. These are the most up-to-date mugshots available from the Department of Corrections.
I could hear them screaming at him and beating on him.
TJ Sloan describes the last time he ever saw his little brother, Colton Clark, alive.
Colt's standing there. He's black and blue. They're beating on him.
TJ, who went by Homer Clark at the time, and Colton were placed in the care of their aunt and uncle, Rebecca and Rex, in 2003. TJ was 9 and Colton just 7.
In those few days, it was a lifestyle that we thought we would enjoy. Rex and Becky treated us well.
But TJ says something changed shortly after Rex and Rebecca formally adopted the brothers.
It went from day and night. It was totally different life. We kind of became their personal little slaves.
Hit with brooms and canes, whipped with extension cords, slapped, punched, and kicked, electrocuted with a cattle prod, even forced to drink their own urine.
I wore glasses when I was younger, and my face would be so swollen from being hit and slapped that I couldn't put my glasses on my face.
Signs of something wrong clearly visible in this school photo of Colton. Bruises on his arms and face. The Clarks pulled the boys out of school soon after.
Colt Clark disappeared from his home around 1:30 Thursday. Police weren't notified until after 9.
In the spring of 2006, Colton is reported missing.
For the last 24 hours, from the air and on the ground, deputies, DAs, and volunteers from Seminole and Hughes counties searched more than 200 acres around Colt's home.
The search would lead to nothing.
They killed him.
We had a sense that there was more than what Homer could tell us.
Seminole County District Attorney Paul Smith, who was a lawyer in the office at the time, remembers speaking to TJ shortly after Colton went missing.
It's hard to talk about because you wanted justice so bad for TJ, for Colton.
But with no sign of Colton and no one admitting anything, the case eventually went cold. A few months later, TJ ran away from the Clarks and his life of abuse.
I either sit there in that house and let them beat me to death, or I run away and give myself some slim chance of making it out of that hellhole.
He would eventually be adopted into a loving family where he relocated to Tennessee. TJ said he told law enforcement the truth about his brother, but more than 5 years later, nothing happened. Over that time, TJ would still search his brother's name online. One day, he saw a report that investigators wanted to reopen Colton's case. They wanted to speak with Homer, but they didn't know where he was or that he had changed his name to TJ.
This is going to bother me the rest of my life if I don't at least try. Just one more time. It will probably add up to nothing.
Finally, 10 years later, in 2016, Rex and Rebecca Clark arrested and charged for multiple counts of child abuse and the murder of their nephew. Now, District Attorney Smith says there were challenges in the case. The biggest, there was no body. Smith recalls a conversation that Rex had with investigators after being arrested.
He said, "You're never going to find him." Laughing, "You're never going to find Colton Clark."
Still, the case moved forward, and after a 2-week trial, the jury reached a verdict in about 2.5 hours.
Guilty, guilty, guilty. 5 counts of guilty.
Finally, justice for little Colton all those years later. Rex and Rebecca Clark sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Do you remember what Rex said to you as he was exiting the court?
I do. He turned around and looked at me and said, "Don't worry, I'll live to on your grave."
Despite the successful conviction, the one question that still remains, what happened to little Colton's body? It's a question I asked them as they were being led away to prison.
Where's Colton's body?
What's your side?
Sweetheart, give me a little kiss. I didn't touch you.
Everybody back up, please.
What a lunatic the guy was. What a, just evil monster he was. Push someone up against the wall and make a creepy comment, why don't you just give me a little kiss? I mean, it just... the guy's head is so far gone.
Rex and Rebecca Clark are serving their sentences in different facilities in the state. They lost an appeal of their conviction in 2019. Shortly after the trial, the community held a vigil for Colton in his honor.
That's the closest thing he ever had to a proper funeral.
In Smith's office, he has a quote from Winnie the Pooh, which he used during the trial to illustrate what the brothers went through.
If there comes a day when we can't be together, keep me in your heart. I'll stay there forever.
After the trial, TJ moved from Tennessee back to Seminole, where he would eventually marry his longtime girlfriend, their daughter even born there. TJ started his career as a firefighter in town.
I had so much bitter and kind of hate for Seminole just because of what happened there, and what better way to get rid of that and to try to give back to all the people that had helped me and supported me.
They since moved away again, and from his new home, TJ with this message to victims of abuse or those who witness it.
You are responsible for your future, and you can do great things regardless of where you came from. If you see something, say something, report it, and follow through with it.
Today, he is left with the physical scars and the lasting memories of his baby brother.
It's just haunting. Knowing that his remains are just out there. I still miss him like crazy. And that's something that'll never go away.
So very happy that Colton's brother spoke for him and stood up against their abusers. In the end, they win. Hopefully one day Colton's remains are found so that his family can have a proper burial for him. Now, Rex, real name James Rex Clark, is serving out his life without parole sentence at the James Crabtree Correctional Center. And Rebecca Clark is at the Mable Bassett Correctional Center. Stacy is one of 3 suspects convicted in the 2018 murder and kidnapping of Shalia Toombs, a 23-year-old mother of 2 who was also 8 months pregnant. She was pregnant with the family's first boy. Stacy and her boyfriend Joshua believed that Shalia had stolen a book bag after she had borrowed Joshua's truck. Stacy and Joshua went to Shalia's Oklahoma City apartment and held her at gunpoint, forcing her into Joshua's truck to go search for this book bag. Now, reports said that the book bag had tools in it, and then there were some articles that said the book bag contained a hard drive from Joshua's employer. Now, Daniel Vasquez, he's a suspect as well, and he was already at Shalia's house. He went along with Stacy, Joshua, and Shalia. Stacy was an alleged drug dealer. She instructed Joshua to strangle the pregnant woman. Shalia, she fought, she clawed, and she begged while screaming, "Please don't. I'm sorry, Josh." At Stacy's instruction, she told Daniel to finish the job. Stacy and Joshua then left Daniel with Joshua's truck, some money and the keys, and told him to drive away. Days later, he ran out of gas. He walks into a Love's gas station, finds a police officer, and confesses. That's when they found Shalia's body in the back of Joshua's truck. With several tips, Joshua and Stacy were located in Arkansas and eventually extradited back to Oklahoma to face charges. Daniel Vasquez was convicted on 2 counts of first-degree murder. For his role, he was sentenced to death. Joshua was convicted March 6, 2023 on the same charges, but he received life without parole. I'm confused. I don't know why Joshua didn't get death and Daniel did, because from the records, it shows that Joshua is the one that held her at gunpoint, followed Stacy's instructions, and strangled this woman that was 8 months pregnant. How the hell do you strangle a woman with that big old 8-month-old stomach? I don't understand that. Now, Daniel said that when he put his hands around Shalia's neck at the instruction of Stacy, he didn't feel a pulse. So she was already dead. But he's the only one that got the death penalty. Stacy decided to plead guilty. She was sentenced to life without parole plus 32 additional years. All sentences will run concurrently. Shalia definitely tried to save her and her unborn son's life. She texted her mother around 4:50 in the morning for help, telling her they were trying to kill her. Lord rest her soul, and I pray and hope that Shalia's mother and family have been able to move on and live with the beautiful memories that they have and shared with Shalia, as well as see her through her daughter's eyes, as she had 2 little girls. And I mentioned she was pregnant with a boy. The family was excited because everybody has girls, and Shalia was about to give them their little boy. May she rest in peace, as well as her unborn child. On May 20th, 1990, Lisa and her co-defendants, Joe, Shane, and Donald, came up with a plan to rob William Gentry and Steve Northington. The 2 men lived in Texas, but often would travel to Oklahoma for business. Lisa was going to play the decoy. When the gentleman arrived to her trailer, she escorted them to a bedroom to smoke weed, while Shane and Donald were hiding in another room. Armed, the 2 burst into the room and instructed everybody to get on the floor. Shane, holding a shotgun, killed William as she was entering the room. Lisa and Shane then robbed Steve. They took $2,600 from his pockets, bound him with duct tape, and drug him to the living room, where he was stabbed. The men's bodies were then placed in the bed of Steve's truck. Lisa and Joe drove to a bridge with Donald and Shane following. They stopped and dumped the men's bodies 30 feet, went back to the trailer, cleaned up, and got rid of the evidence as best as they could. Meanwhile, Steve was still alive. He managed to free himself and was able to make it to a home and call the police. Joe Hackney took his case to trial, and he was found guilty and convicted of first-degree murder, conspiracy, and assault and battery with a dangerous weapon. He was sentenced to 30 years plus life without parole. Lisa and Shane received the same sentence. Shane actually died in prison in February 2009. Donald's serving out his life sentence plus 50 years. He was not convicted on the conspiracy charge.